As a marker and supervisor, I often see students who have spent months conducting rigorous database searches, then produce a PRISMA flow diagram that does not accurately reflect any of it. PRISMA flow diagram is one of those things that as academics and supervisors, we simply assume students will figure it out. It's freely available, the instructions are out there, so we do not teach it and expect students to get on with it. However, this unguided learning then results in a lot of unnecessary mistakes, numbers that don't add up, rows removed from the template, wrong flow diagram template completely, terminology used incorrectly throughout. In this video, I will teach you how to create your flowchart, populate the fields, and avoid the common mistakes that I see as a marker. PRISMA stands for Preferred Reporting Items for Systematic Reviews and Meta-Analyses. It is a reporting standard and its purpose is to provide a transparent, reproducible record of how you have searched and selected the literature for your review. If you're conducting a systematic review or a scoping review, a PRISMA flow diagram is not optional. It is a standard expected component of your submission. Markers will look for it. If you're conducting another review type, a PRISMA flow diagram is not a formal requirement, and sometimes inappropriate depending on the search and selection process. However, a simplified or a modified version can still be a valuable addition to your work as it visually and clearly conveys your review process. There is no need to create one from scratch. On the PRISMA official website, there are 4 flow diagram templates available for download. 2 are for systematic reviews that update a previously published review. The remaining 2 templates are for new reviews. One template covers databases and registers only. This applies if your entire search was conducted through academic databases only, PubMed, Scopus, CINAHL, and so on. The second template adds a column for other sources. In practice, this is the version that most students will need. Other sources does not only mean grey literature like reports, government publications, theses. It also includes citation chaining. If you followed reference lists to identify additional studies or conducted backwards citation searching, that activity needs to be recorded somewhere in your flow diagram. This template gives you the column to do it. There is also a web application available called Shiny that allows you to generate a customized flow diagram. You fill in all of the details here. Personally, I find it a little bit clunky and the output can be difficult to edit once it is generated as it produces an image file. The Word document template is easy to work with directly and imports cleanly into your dissertation document. That is what we'll be using in this video. Links to all 4 templates and the web app are in the video description below. Now that we have the right template open, let us walk through how to populate it. We'll start with the left column, databases and registers, then move to the right column for other sources. Before we go any further, 3 terms need to be clearly defined because confusing them is one of the common mistakes I see in student flow diagrams. A record is what a database returns when you run a search. It is the title and abstract indexed in that database. One record refers to one entry in your search results. A report is a document, a journal article, a dissertation, a conference abstract, a preprint, any document that provides information about a research study. One record points to one report. A study is the actual investigation, the trial, the survey, the experiment. One study can have multiple reports. For example, a clinical trial might have a published protocol, a quantitative results paper, a qualitative results paper, a theoretical paper, and a 1-year post-trial follow-up paper. Those are 5 reports, but 1 study. This distinction matters because different boxes in your flow diagram are counting different things. Getting this wrong may mean that your numbers will not reconcile and you may cause confusion later in your write-up. The first box on the left asks for the total number of records identified through databases and registers. This is not a single summary number. You need to list each database or register separately and record how many results your search returned in each one. So if you search PubMed, Scopus, and CINAHL, you record all 3 separate n values, 1 per database. The total in the box above is the sum of all of them. If you search a study register, like clinicaltrials.gov for example, or the WHO International Clinical Trials Registry, those are recorded separately in the registers row, not combined with your database results. Once you have your total records identified, the next step is deduplication. Duplicates are the primary reason here. This box may also include records removed by automated tools like Rayon on if you use the automatic deduplication function. You can delete any line that is irrelevant to your review within the boxes as well. The records screen box is your post-deduplication total. This is the number of unique records your team or you reviewed at the title and abstract level. This is the number that you have after you have deducted the duplicates from the total database records. Records excluded at this stage are those that failed the title and abstract screening. You do not need to give reasons at this stage. A single AND value is sufficient. Reports sought for retrieval is the number of records you have identified as potentially eligible at the screening stage and attempted to retrieve in full text. This is the number after you have deducted the excluded records at the title and abstract stage from the screened records. Reports not retrieved records any that you could not access. Full text unavailable, access restrictions, these should be noted on the right over here. Reports assessed for eligibility is the number of full text you actually read and evaluated against your inclusion and exclusion criteria. This is the box where exclusion reasons become important. Unlike the title and abstract screening stage, here you must provide a breakdown of why each report was excluded at full text stage. Each reason should have its own AND value. We will look at the other sources column first before we discuss this last box over here. If you conducted citation chaining, backwards reference searching, or search grey literature sources, this column records that activity separately from your database searches. Other sources is not a catch-all. It has distinct categories. Most commonly used by reviewers is citation searching. If you identified additional studies by following the reference list of the papers that you have already included, that is citation chaining, also called backwards chaining or reference chaining. Record how many citations you have identified this way over here. You can record grey literature here, reports, policy documents, dissertations, and other non-indexed sources outside academic databases. If you search these, each source should be listed with its own AND value like the database box. If you had to hand search specific journals relevant to your review topic, you would also include the AND value over here. The screening and eligibility rows in this column follow the same logic as the left column. Because for these sources, you are not gathering a basket of records from a database, you do not need to do title and abstract screening. You would have already done this top level screening as you chose them from the citation list or website, so you will notice that there is no title abstract screening box. It goes straight to retrieval. Reports are assessed for eligibility at full text. Exclusion reasons are required at the eligibility stage. This particular box is the final synthesis set from your database register and the other sources. Note that this box counts studies and reports. If two reports in your results refer to the same study, a paper about a protocol of the study and a results paper from the same clinical trial, for example, they count as one study. I have created an annotated version of the PRISMA template if you want an image to refer to as you fill yours out. It is on my resource hub. The link is below in the description. Now let us cover the most common mistakes I see as a marker. Mistake number 1, numbers that do not reconcile. This is the most fundamental error, and it is often the last thing that students check. Every number in your flow diagram must be traceable. A marker reading a flow diagram where the numbers do not add up mathematically will question the rigor of the entire review, not just the flow diagram. Before you submit, check that every number from the top of the diagram to the bottom and make sure the numbers add up mathematically. This will take less than 5 minutes. Mistake number 2 is confusing studies and reports. We define records, reports, and studies at the start of this video. Most commonly, studies and reports are being confused. This distinction matters, especially in your results and discussions where you make claims like most articles reported that, or 5 out of 8 studies claim that. The fix is simple. First, note the number of reports. This is simply the number of articles. Then note how many studies have been reported from all of the articles that you have included in your review. This number should rarely be larger than your reports because it is rare that an article will report on more than one study, but it is common to have multiple articles or reports published from the same large-scale study. Mistake 3 is vague or missing exclusion reasons. At full text eligibility stage, each inclusion reason requires its own AND value. The reasons must be specific and they should reflect your inclusion and exclusion criteria directly. Reasons like not relevant or did not meet criteria are not acceptable at this stage. They tell the marker nothing about how you applied your criteria. They also suggest that the screening wasn't done systematically. Your exclusion reasons should read like an audit. wrong population, wrong intervention, wrong study design, outcomes not reported. Sometimes you may have papers with multiple exclusion reasons. Personally, I would just record one exclusion reason so that the numbers will add up and it's not confusing. But in the appendices where you may include an excluded article table, you can note all of the reasons. Mistake number 4 is having missing boxes. Some students do not use the official templates from the PRISMA website. Instead, they find a published systematic review, copy the flow diagram from that paper, and attempt to replicate it for their own review. The problem is that published flow diagrams are already customized. Rows that did not apply to that review may have been removed. The diagram that you're copying from may be missing rows that are directly relevant to your methodology. The solution is to always start from the official Word template. It just saves you time and prevents these avoidable mistakes. Mistake number 5 is formatting problems in the final document. This last mistake is purely practical, but I see it quite regularly. The PRISMA flow diagram is a figure inside a Word document. When students insert it into their dissertation and then continue editing the surrounding text, adjusting the margins, adding section breaks, reformatting headings, the figure then starts to shift or lose its borders, and by the time the document is submitted, the entire flow diagram is just mangled. The solution is straightforward. Once your flow diagram is finalized and all of your numbers are confirmed, take a screenshot of it, insert that screenshot as an image file into your dissertation, and copy and paste your editable flowchart onto a separate document in case you need to edit it again. An image does not shift when you edit the surrounding text. It does not lose its borders. It submits exactly as it appears on the screen. Do this only after your numbers are final. You do not want to be re-screenshotting every time you correct a figure. That covers everything you need to produce a PRISMA flow diagram that is accurate, complete, and will hold up to scrutiny. If you want to work through this with a real example, the annotated table is available in the Resource Hub. The link is below in the description. If you're at a point where your flow diagram is done, but your methodology chapter still needs work, like your search strategy, your inclusion, exclusion criteria, the rationale for your databases that you have chosen, that is something that I work directly one-to-one with my clients. The link to book a session is also in the description. I also have a number of videos on scoping reviews and systematic reviews and a playlist on how I use AI in my own scoping review on my channel. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!